This story is fictional, but what if the camera you turned off kept recording? The footage began on an ordinary night. The room was empty, no movement. The camera should not have been active, yet the timestamp continued to run. At first, nothing seemed wrong. Then time suddenly skipped forward. Several minutes were missing. The door appeared slightly more open, though no motion was recorded. A chair seemed to change position, even though no one entered the room. Then the sound began. A faint noise, almost like breathing, slowly appeared in the audio. With every second, it felt closer. The camera never moved. It simply watched. Silent, unblinking, as if whatever was inside the room didn't need to be seen to be there. The recording didn't stop. The camera kept running. The room was still empty. Yet something felt different. Time jumped again, as if several minutes had been removed from the footage. The curtain seemed to move, even though the window was closed. There was no air. A short burst of static appeared in the audio, then vanished. At first, it didn't seem important. Then the center of the room began to darken, as if the camera was missing something. The breathing-like sound returned, longer this time, stretched out. The camera remained silent, still. It continued recording without reacting. There was no one in the room. But the footage seemed to disagree. As the recording continued, the room seemed unchanged, yet the camera felt aware of something. The dark area in the center slowly grew wider. Time jumped again, this time losing several full minutes. A very low whisper-like sound appeared in the audio, almost impossible to hear. At first, it felt like simple noise. Then the shadows of the objects began falling at strange angles, as if the light source had shifted. The image briefly became distorted. Inside the darkness, something seemed to move, but no shape appeared. The breathing sound felt closer now. The camera stayed silent. Still, it kept recording. At this point, the recording no longer felt like a simple glitch. The room looked different through the camera's lens. The walls felt farther apart, the objects oddly out of proportion. The timestamp began behaving incorrectly, seconds repeating as if time were looping. From the static, a whisper separated. No words, just closeness. The camera shook once, sharply, as if something brushed against it. The darkness was no longer in the center of the room. It seemed closer now, drifting toward the camera. Then a single, clear breath was heard. Right beside it, the camera stayed silent. The recording continued. At this point, the recording became impossible to ignore. The room was empty, yet a mark appeared on the floor. At first, it was faint, barely visible. Then it slowly became clearer. Time did not skip this time. Everything ran normally, but something had been left behind. In the audio, a low-pressure sound emerged, as if the air in the room tightened. The light around the mark behaved strangely. Shadows stretched in ways that made no sense. The footage felt closer, though no zoom was active. The breathing sound returned, lower this time, near the floor. The mark looked like a trace, yet the room was empty. The camera recorded it anyway. From this moment on, the camera no longer felt like a simple device. The edges of the frame began to darken. The timestamp appeared frozen, seconds refusing to move. The image slowly pulled toward the center, as if the camera was selecting something. A continuous low tone filled the audio. It didn't sound like the room. It felt like the camera itself. The mark on the floor appeared closer, positioned perfectly in the center. The image blurred, then snapped sharply back into focus, locked onto the mark. Then a short mechanical click was heard, as if the camera had made a decision. Something changed at this point. The camera no longer felt like it was watching the room. It felt like it was watching the viewer. The image was extremely clear, yet the center of the frame felt heavy. Time began moving again, but the seconds passed far too slowly. A very low sound emerged from the audio, not from the room, but from inside the camera itself. The angle seemed to shift slightly, though no motion was recorded. The darkness began forming into something, but nothing recognizable. The sound grew closer. Then the footage froze, as if the camera was staring. The question was no longer what it recorded, but who it was looking at. In the end, the camera made a decision. The room was still empty. No movement, no breathing. Time moved for a few seconds, then stopped. The image slowly faded into darkness, as if the recording was no longer needed. A soft mechanical tone played in the audio. It wasn't a warning. It was an ending. The camera stopped recording on its own. No one arrived. No one left. But something felt complete. The footage was finished. The question was never what happened in the room. It was who the recording was meant for.